Hey guys, Doogie Huazer MD here with the second in my series explaining the chart. This one's for agility carries, the first one was for strength and intelligence carries, so we're just moving right on through the carries. The first carry on the list is Anti-Mage. His mana break scales very well early, mid, and late game, but he kind of needs a slow or a stun to be able to catch the people in lane and make full use of that mana break. So some heroes that synergize well with him are Venomancer for the slow, Ancient Apparition for the slow and the stun, and Jakiro for the slow and the stun as well. For heroes that kind of counter him a bit, you have Spectre. She has Dispersion, which reflects a chunk of damage that's dealt to her back to her attacker. So that allows her to have a slight edge over Anti-Mage when they're both fed carries late game. Centaur Warrunner has a gap closer, so he can initiate onto Anti-Mage, a stun, 2-second stun, and a large nuke. Also damage dealt to Centaur Warrunner, a chunk of it will be taken back to Anti-Mage again. So abilities like that kind of put a damper on many carries. Then you have Treant Protector. Treant Protector is very strong because he stops blinks for 4.5 seconds, which is more than long enough to stop, to have your team stop and kill Anti-Mage. Next up, we have Drow Ranger or Drow Ranger, depending on how you pronounce it. For heroes that work well with her, you've got Disruptor. His kinetic field stops enemies in their tracks. Lets her hammer on them for a while, and then they're usually low enough for a pursuit afterwards. If they aren't, you can glimpse them back to where they were during the kinetic field, and then typically get a kill. You also have Vengeful Spirit. Vengeful Spirit works very well with her because of her percent bonus to damage. That's an aura that she has. It only works with the hero's primary attribute, damage derived from agility in the case of agility carries. But Drow gets a bonus to agility as her ultimate. So it's 20, 30, or 40 agility based on the rank that you have her ultimate, which means that it's 36% of that, so 36% of 20, 30, or 40 damage is how much additional damage that Drow will get when there's a Vengeful Spirit nearby. Well, an allied Vengeful Spirit, obviously. Then you have Death Prophet. You can just kind of stack the silences there, that's why they're very strong. You could probably get about a 10 or 11 second silence if there's a great deal of coordination between you and your teammates. Otherwise, you're probably looking at an 8 or 9 second silence. You'll rarely get that 12-second silence, though. That's the ideal silence length. Then for heroes that counter him, Ricky. Ricky counters a lot of agility heroes based on the fact that they can't use their escape mechanisms if they have one from within his mist, and they can't fight him within the mist. So they're forced to walk out of the mist at a slowed movement rate. Because of that, he counters them, and once you get a BKB, or an MKB, Monkey King Bar or Black King Bar, you can fight him within the mist, but until then, your ability to do so is greatly diminished. Then you have Centaur Warrunner. Centaur Warrunner counters her because she has a gap closer and a stun. Drow Strong because she can kite heroes. You can't really kite Centaur Warrunner. Then Doom. Doom counters her because he stops her from kiting with Doom. She can't use frost arrows, and she loses her bonus to agility that is part of her ultimate. Next up, we have Juggernaut. Juggernaut synergizes well with heroes with a slow because of his Blade Fury. So you've got Venomancer, Treant Protector, and Ancient Apparition, all heroes with a slow. Treant Protector also has an Entangle, and Ancient Apparition also has a Stun. If you can get both the slow and the Entangle, or the slow and the stun off, you've probably killed the people in your lane. People that kind of counter Juggernaut, you have Beastmaster and Bane. They bypass magic immunity with their ultimates, and Juggernaut is very strong because his ultimate grants him magic immunity. And Templar can counter him a bit because of Dispersion. Dispersion allows her to block so many instances of damage. Normally when you use Omni Slash on a target that's alone, you're pretty much guaranteed a kill. Dispersion will block all the instances of Omni Slash on her when she's alone. So you've just wasted your Omni Slash. She can be very annoying to try and kill by herself, but if she's in a team fight, is a little more advantageous to you because your Omni Slash will also affect the other targets. Next up we have Mirana. Mirana's kind of a soft or semi-carry, depending on whom you ask, but she's very dependent on mana, and so she works well with Crystal Maiden, who has a global mana aura. And then she also synergizes well with Bane, Pudge, and Crystal Maiden because they have a hold. They can hold heroes in place. Bane's and Pudge's is also a stun. And then she can line up a very long-range arrow to maximize the stun from her. People that can escape from her pretty easily. Puck can both escape from her and pursue her fairly easily. Ricky can stop her from leaping, and so your ganks are much more successful with Ricky. And Slardar can chase her with sprint, reduce her already low armor with his ultimate. He just in general is a very good counter to her. Next up we have Morphling. Morphling is a very, very hard carry, and so in lane he requires a babysitter, someone that feeds him either mana or health, so that he can harass with his nuke and escape. He's guaranteed an escape. Coddle's a good example of someone that can feed him mana. People that can feed him health, Warlock, and Dazzle. Then people that work well against him, Kunkka and Disruptor. They can both move him back to where he was before his escape mechanisms used. And Bloodseeker. Bloodseeker does pure damage based on distance traveled with his ultimate, and Waveform, which is his escape mechanism, still counts as distance traveled, so you're still taking that pure damage. Next up is Phantom Lancer. Phantom Lancer is another example of a very hard carry, though he is a melee carry instead of Morphling's range carry. People that work well with him, someone that can hold someone still and take people out of a team fight to let him kind of do his thing. Bane's a good example of that. Then Coddle. Coddle can feed him mana. Keeper of the Light, for those of you new to the game. The old dude that looks a bit like Gandalf. Phantom Lancer has a very powerful nuke and slow early game, but he's very mana dependent and doesn't really have the mana to spam that. Keeper of the Light alleviates that situation, lets him spam that slow, and lets him kind of dominate his lane. Then you have Omni Knight. Omni Knight has a heal. He has magic immunity, which can protect Phantom Lancer without him having to get a Black King bar or anything. And Guardian Angel, which can protect his illusions. So he's pretty good at keeping Phantom Lancer safe. Then the people that counter him are two of the illusion hero counters. Sand King, because he brings out a great deal of AoE damage. Earthshaker would be another good example of that. But he did not make the cut for this hero, though he did for another. Gyrocopter, because he lets his E lets him attack everyone, including Phantom Lancer's illusions. And Slardar is another good counter because he puts his little track up on Phantom Lancer, and then he can see when Phantom Lancer tries to leave the fight. Next up we have Ricky. Ricky kind of needs a babysitter early game, so Dazzle's a good example of someone that can babysit Ricky. But he also can go for kills around level 5 to 7 in that range. So Crystal Maiden has a slow and a stun, or a slow and a hold, or entangle. And then Shadow Shaman has shackles, a nuke, hex. He brings out quite a deal of crowd control, which lets Ricky go for those early-ish game kills. He can't go for a kill very, very early, but around level 5 through 7, Ricky's probably competent enough to go for a kill. For heroes that counter him, you have Slardar and Bounty Hunter. They counteract his stealth with their tracks. They both have abilities that track a hero. And Doom can turn off his passive stealth. So Ricky's ultimate is a passive stealth. After so many seconds of not doing anything, he fades into stealth. Doom's ultimate can counter some passives, and Ricky's is one of them. So Ricky's just kind of sitting there, and Doom already does quite a lot of damage, so Doom alone is probably enough to pretty much kill Ricky. Next up, we have Sniper. Sniper likes quite a few heroes. Pugna, I put him at the end, but I'll do him first. Pugna has a pretty cool trick with him. You can decrepify a target right as the assassinate shot's about to hit for quite a large chunk of damage mid-game. Late game it doesn't work quite as well, but mid-game it lets you get those kills with Sniper to let you power through into late game. Cold Snap works really well from Invoker. Cold Snap works with Headshot. You got 2 mini stuns going out, so there's a pretty good chance that the person's not going to be able to get away from you. And Beastmaster is a slow, a stun, and an attack speed increase. All things that work pretty well with Sniper. For people that counter him, Ricky and Storm Spirit counter, or not Ricky and Storm Spirit, Storm Spirit and Pudge counter him mid. These are 2 heroes that deal quite a bit of damage and just don't really let you escape from them, so if you start losing an engagement with them, there's no real way to get away. And then Ricky, Sniper doesn't even have an escape mechanism, so when Ricky lays his mist down, Sniper has to walk out of the mist and then walk all the way back to his tower to be fully safe from Ricky. If you catch Sniper too far away from his tower as Ricky, you have guaranteed yourself a kill. Next up is Templar Assassin. Templar Assassin is a very solid mid-hero, and synergizes well with people that shred armor. So, one of these heroes isn't in the game yet, but I had to include him because he's a favorite of mine and one of the better armor shredders in the game. Bristlebore, as you can see, that's clearly a Dota 1 icon in the middle. 2 heroes that also synergize well with him, Dazzle and Slardar, or her, rather. Templar Assassins are her. But they have very powerful armor shreds. They both have stuns. One has a heal. They just both dish out good things that are work very well with Templar Assassin. Next, are for people that counter her, you have Bat Rider. She frequently builds a Black King Bar to counter the magic abilities on the team. A really good way to get around that is Bat Rider's ultimate. Bat Rider's ultimate goes through BKB. It's another one of those ultimates that do that. Then another one of her strengths is her Dispersion. Dispersion blocks so many instances of damage. The issue is there are several heroes that can dish out instances of damage very quickly, and they're very minor instances of damage. Darkseer's Ion Shell dishes out an instance of damage every 0.1 second. So at max rank, Dispersion blocks 8 instances of damage. It doesn't even block a whole second of damage from Ion Shell. You also have Venomancer. Venomancer has 3 dots damage over time abilities. So if you get all 3 on Templar, her Dispersion is going to go away very quickly, and you've probably taken her out of usefulness for the team fight. Next up, we have Luna. Luna works very well with heroes that also have an aura. So Drow has Precision Aura, Vengeful Spirit has a Damage Aura, and Luna has a just flat damage increase aura. If you're playing Luna and Vengeful in the same lane together, you start out at roughly 90 damage per auto attack. This is a huge damage increase. She also likes Dazzle because Dazzle decreases damage or decreases armor for everyone, and that's a way to effectively lower what's called effective hit points. Effective hit points are how many hit points you have plus armor and resistance is factored in. She has a glaive that bounces to a bunch of targets, so if you lower the armor of quite a few targets, you level all those targets' effective hit points, and then the glaive just kind of bounces around, dealing massive damage to all the people with their armor lowered. On the other hand, Luna doesn't have the longest attack range, so she's fairly easily harassable with someone like Zeus or Bane if you've chosen to level Brain Sap first, though generally Bane's a better counter because of his ability to drain attack damage and to do a long disable on his target. Ricky's also a decent target because she doesn't have an escape mechanism per se, and she can't use her nukes, which is her ultimate and her Q, from within his mist. Though, once she gets out of the mist, Ricky does need to back away because he is at risk of being killed by her ultimate. Next up, we have Bounty Hunter. Bounty Hunter is kind of a soft carry, but he's played very frequently, both competitively and casually. People that work very well with him, Darkseers, Ion Shell, allows him to go in, just kind of stealth, sit behind them, and deal damage over time. When waiting to last hit a minion, or while waiting to last hit a minion. Omni Knight for the same reason. Omni can, or Bounty can stealth behind a target. Omni can use this large heal and nuke on him, and then Bounty can pop out of the shadows at full health, dealing quite a bit of damage. And Dazzle, because Dazzle's a good babysitter, and he does need a bit of farm to be able to do that soft carry stuff that he does. He needs a Battle Fury, so he needs items to be able to work at his best. Strange enough, Bounty would be a good counter to Bounty, but you can't do that, so Slardar is what people have to settle with. Slardar is a very good carry himself, and can track people that are in stealth. Tiny is a good counter, because Tiny does massive amounts of damage. He nukes very, very hard, and late game, he can even carry harder than Bounty. And Doom works very well because he keeps Bounty from popping back into stealth. Next up we have Ursa. Ursa works well with Shadow Shaman and Tiny and Lich because they all either slow or stun. Ursa is one of the best skirmishers, if not the best skirmisher in the game, and because of that, people very rarely stay around to fight him. So he needs people that slow or stun so that he can finish them off. Enchantress can kite him, so she's a decent counter to him. Bane can just stop him in his tracks with his ultimate, so he's a decent counter as well. And Nature's Prophet can use Sprout to keep Ursa away from the team, and then everybody can focus Ursa from outside of the trees while Ursa's powerless to do anything to stop it. Lone Druid is a very popular hero for many reasons, the best of which is that he's a very, very good split pusher. So he synergizes well with Broodmother, who also likes to split push. If you have one top and one bot, you can have both of them split pushing while 3 people fight mid, and you'll be getting towers the whole time. He also likes Venomancer. Venomancer can defend until late game very well, and Lone Druid's kind of one of those late game carries. He essentially has 12 item slots because he builds items on his bear and builds items on himself as well. So he goes very, very well into late game. Venom also has a slow, which lets him chase down people for the kill. And Vengeful Spirit. Vengeful Spirit has a stun, a damage aura increase, all things that work very well with many, many carries. People that counter him are people that have abilities that require multiple targets to be around to do their best. So you have Lich's Ultimate, great counter to Lone Druid. Windrunner's Shackle Shot, I believe it's called. That stuns 2 targets, chaining them together. You can stun both him and the bear. And Witch Doctor has his little cask that bounces between targets, and that causes both of the targets to be stun locked very effectively. Next up, you have Naga Siren. Naga Siren sets up great ultimates from people that are already good initiators. So, Kunkka, Enigma, and Tidehunter, all heroes that really like to initiate, but can't always line up a good initiation with everybody. Naga's ultimate puts everybody in a sleep, then the other hero uses their ability to initiate, and right when it's about to hit, you drop Naga's ultimate down. If you don't drop Naga's ultimate down, however, you've just fucked your team out of a team fight. You really don't want to do that. If you don't know what you're doing, don't play Naga Siren. That's one word of advice that I will readily give you. When she's carrying, and she can carry, but she's also sometimes played as a lane support, she's dependent on her illusions. So you have 3 people that do a ton of damage to multiple targets, and Sand King Gyro and Earthshaker counter her for the same reasons that they counter Phantom Lancer. Next up, we have Troll Warlord. He offers a little bit of utility in his blind, but is mostly just a hard carry. He synergizes well with people that help to get hard carries fed on kills. So Lich, Bane, and Crystal Maiden. Crystal Maiden also solves his mana issues that he can have sometimes. Then people that counter him, Axe. Axe makes him fight him, getting rid of quite a bit of the utility of his hard carrying. Then you have Treant Protector. Treant Protector stops him from attacking for 4.5 seconds, and he doesn't really have any other nukes or anything, though he does have that blind. So he can't contribute through spells or any other means, really. And Ricky counters him for the same reasons that he counters the other agility heroes on the list. Next up we have Bloodseeker. Bloodseeker works well with people that can move heroes because of his ultimate. His ultimate does pure damage based on distance moved. So you have two heroes that are really, really good at moving heroes, and that's Pudge and Vengeful Spirit. Vengeful Spirit's little teleport switch works with Bloodseeker's ultimate quite well. So does Pudge's hook. Vacuum also has a little bit of synergy with his ultimate, but also Ion Shell works very well. His sprint works very well, lets him pursue targets. Just all in all, quite a bit of synergy with Darkseer, and Darkseer is just a solid pick in general. For ways to counter him, teleport scrolls, Scrolls of Town Portal, as they're actually known in the game. Scrolls of Town Portal allow you to teleport away once you've been ulted by Bloodseeker. Bloodseeker has no means of stunning you out of the scroll, which is another reason that he works well with Vengeful Spirit. And so you can just teleport away once the ultimate's put on you, because you probably can't win a one-on-one fight with Bloodseeker. Then Tinker counters him quite a bit because he has a 100% blind, so whenever he gets ulted, he'll put his 100% blind on the target and just sit there for a little bit until he can run away. Tinker also frequently builds Boots of Travel, and Boots of Travel is like a Scroll of Town Portal on a boot, so he always has a scroll to use fairly often, or fairly regularly. Next up is Viper. Viper just kind of counters him mid if you take Bloodseeker mid, which quite a few people do, though I would encourage you not to if you're trying to play a more competitive game. Viper can counter you very, very easily. So his poison has increased damage the lower you are on health, and he's going to be very good at denying you creeps as well. Next up, we have Shadow Fiend. Shadow Fiend's ult is very, very good in teamfights, but it's not quite an initiation move. So you want someone that can initiate with a stun or some other kind of disable. Tidehunter, Enigma, and Tiny are all examples of heroes that can do that. One person that counters him mid very, very easily, well, two, Batrider and Templar Assassin. They're both counterpicks to him. Templar counters him because he doesn't really have much in line of abilities. He has Shadow Rays, so you can knock a couple charges off Dispersion, but Dispersion is going to block most of your damage so that you can't skirmish with her, and it's going to give her a damage bonus, so she's going to be better at last hitting and denying you. Batrider just kind of starts putting down sticky napalm and makes it so very, very difficult for Shadow Fiend to get in there and farm. And then Doom. Doom stops you from using Shadow Blade, which is an item almost always bought by Shadow Fiend. You're not going to be able to use any of your abilities. You're probably just going to sit there and die. Doom also deals large amounts of damage, though it's a damage over time effect. And because it deals so much damage, it and a few auto attacks are generally enough when combined to kill Shadow Fiend by themselves. Next up we have Razor. Razor is a soft carry that specializes in disabling other carries, or rendering other carries useless through his attack damage drain. Some heroes that that work well with that, rather, are Tidehunter, because he has a long stun and a slow. These abilities allow him to stay next to targets to drain their damage. Then you have Dazzle and Phantom Assassin. Razor's ultimate shreds armor, so he likes people that also shred armor, and that like people that shred armor. Dazzle and Phantom Assassin are examples of each respectively. Then people that keep him from moving around in the fight. Bloodseeker with his ultimate, Slark with his pounce. If you can't move to a target to cast your attack damage drain on them, you can't use the reason that you really pick Razor, which is to drain the damage from a carry. And then Lena has the ability to nuke Razor down almost instantly mid-game. Late game, Razor builds mostly tanky items so that he can survive to drain that damage, though. So late game, she becomes a little bit less of a threat. Heroes that, next up is Faceless, and heroes that synergize well with him are Zeus, Darkseer, and Witch Doctor, because once Chronosphere goes down, melee heroes can't attack the heroes really within Chronosphere. Darkseer can cast an Ion Shell on him and vacuum everybody together to ensure that you get a good Chronosphere with everyone close together for your Battle Fury once you have it. Zeus can lay down multiple casts, so all of his abilities while the Chronosphere is up. And Witch Doctor can cast his ultimate from outside the Chronosphere, doing quite a bit of damage in addition to all the damage that a Faceless Void will be doing. Heroes that counter him are heroes that can kite him, and heroes that can out-harass him. For examples, I have Zeus, Queen of Pain, and Drown. It's very funny that Zeus actually happens to both counter and synergize well with a hero. If you notice a pattern like that, a hero that both synergizes with someone and counters someone, and you see the hero that it synergizes with on your team, it's a very good pick because it keeps the enemy team from counterpicking that hero against your hero. Next up is Phantom Assassin. Phantom Assassin synergizes very well with Enchantress, because Enchantress has a slow, and you can stack your slows together, so you use Enchantress's slow, and then you use Phantom Assassin's slow, and together with Impetus, Enchantress's alt, and Phantom Assassin's really powerful crit, you're fairly certain to get a kill in lane. Omni makes a very good babysitter for her because he has a slow, a magic immunity before she gets Black King Bar, and a healing nuke. And Magnus works well with her because he can drag people towards her to fight. He also has a very powerful stun that stuns everybody and brings them close to each other, and that works especially well with Phantom Assassin because she almost always builds Battle Fury. For people that counter her, Shadow Demon. Shadow Demon can counter a lot of carries because he makes 2 copies of them. Then he casts Soul Catcher, which amplifies his damage. So you're being attacked by 2 clones of you that together do 180% of your damage. That's going to be dealing quite a bit of damage to you, and it makes it so that your own worst enemy is yourself. Razor can drain that damage from her, and Doom can stop her in her tracks, stop her blink, stop her dagger. I'm not positive that he stops her ultimate because he doesn't stop every passive ability, just most passive abilities. Had to have a quick drink. Now I'm back. The next hero is Viper. Viper really likes Dazzle. Dazzle, again, drains armor, heals, Shallow Grave. All these things. Dazzle's a very solid pick for your hard support. He likes Faceless Void because he can attack from outside the Chronosphere, and is another hard carry that can take full advantage of Chronosphere. And Enigma because it's another mass disable. Viper is a little squishy to physical damage, so he likes those people that can have a large disable. Then people that counter him, Slardar can stop him from building Shadow Blade or using the effectiveness of Shadow Blade. Viper's another carry that frequently builds Shadow Blade. Pudge can counter him mid, and Tiny can stop him from doing much at all because Tiny has quite a few disables. Next up we have Clinks. Clinks kind of seems to have fallen out of favor. He doesn't seem to be played very often, but I'm covering all the carries, so I'll put him in here anyway. Clinks is kind of mana hungry because he has a bonus to damage that's dependent on his mana, his flaming arrows. Uses about 8 mana a shot, if I remember correctly, and that means he needs 8 mana whenever he wants to make an attack for full damage. Crystal Maiden works very well with that because she feeds him mana. Another good example of someone that feeds mana would be Keeper of the Light. Shadow Shaman can keep someone still long enough for you to use Strafe and Flaming Arrows to kill a target. And Omni Knight works very well with heroes with a stealth, like Clinks. Because he has a stealth, though, Slardar is a good counter to him. Axe can also take people out of stealth because of his taunt. And Doom can stop him from even popping the stealth, stop him from using Searing Arrows or Strafe, and just in general is a real pain to heroes that are reliant on escape mechanisms. Broodmother's another pick that seems to have fallen out of favor, but she is still very good as a split pusher. So she likes other heroes that can split push. Enigma, we've talked about his Black Hole a lot, but he can push as well. Nature's Prophet and Lycan are good examples of that as well. Lycan has his wolves. Nature's Prophet has his summoned trees. And there's quite a bit of synergy between Howl and the Spiderlings, Howl being one of Lycan's abilities. Howl gives a flat damage increase to heroes and an increase to their summoned units as well. Because Broodmother collects so many summoned units throughout the course of a split push, Howl works quite well with her and can make short work of any tower in the lane. She's reliant on her stealth, on her webs to get away. When she's in a web and she stays still long enough, or she stays within the web long enough, heroes can't see her unless there's a Sentry Ward, which is the last item there. Great counter to her that can be bought by any hero, and that's why she's fallen out of favor. But Slardar and Bounty can also counter as well, and would be great picks if they have another stealth hero. Next up is Weaver. Weaver's an interesting stealth hero because he doesn't have the same counters that many stealth heroes do. He gains, or she, I believe. I'm not quite sure on its gender because it's a spider, but I think it's a her. Her stealth also gives her max move speed, which allows her to get away even if she can be seen. Because of that, because she has a stealth, she works well with Darkseer. She also likes Dazzle. Dazzle's a babysitter that shreds armor, and Weaver also has an armor shred, and so she also likes Templar Assassin. You might be noticing that heroes that have an armor shred, like other heroes that have an armor shred, it's one of the most effective ways to lower the enemy team's effective hit points. For heroes that counter her, we have Bloodseeker. Bloodseeker makes it so that she can't run away, and if a hero is low enough, Bloodseeker can see them even if they're stealthed. Doom also counters her because it stops her from using her escape mechanism. And Death Prophet has a 6-second silence, which is more than enough time to focus and kill Weaver. Next up we have Spectre. Spectre is a hard carry who, despite some nerfs, is still very powerful because of dispersion. She likes heroes with a long disable because her ultimate makes a clone of her that attacks every hero on the enemy team. So Warlock, Enigma, and Tidehunter lets you get the most out of those illusions before they're destroyed. Heroes that counter her, Lifestealer and Juggernaut won't take damage from dispersion while they're magic immune. Since they both have magic immunity, they both counter Spectre fairly well. Storm Spirit and Anti-Mage and Quap, all heroes with Blink, make it so that despite the fact that she can go through terrain because of her Spectral Dagger, she can't really chase those heroes, so she can't really get those easy kills on them. Next up we have Meepo. As a general rule, I would recommend that you don't play Meepo unless you've learned how to micro. There will be a guide for microing on my channel at some point in time. It will be one of my beginner guides. If you want to play Meepo, I'd recommend that you watch it because it's very, very important that you know how to micro before you play Meepo. Meepo likes heroes that have these long AoE stuns, Enigma, Magnus, and Jacaro, because his poof, which he can cast once for each clone or copy of himself that he has, does about, I think, 220 damage at max rank. So if you have 5 Meepos and you poof with all of them, that's 1,100 in magic damage in this small little AoE. If you do it next to a black hole, you've caught 4 or 5 heroes with 1,100 magic damage. The same goes for Magnus's reverse polarity. Unfortunately, there are quite a few of him. There's always at least 4 or 5 late game, so Earthshaker is a really good counter, and a hero that would like getting attacked, like Axe, is a very good counter to him. He's dependent on farm because he's a hard carry, and he's also weaker than some other hard carries late game, which is hard to imagine. That makes Nyx a very good counter for him. Nyx can just kind of find and kill him. A skilled Meepo player will also send his clones or his copies of himself to the jungle to farm with his microing abilities. If you find one of those copies in the jungle by themselves as someone like Nyx or Bounty or Ricky, any of those kind of heroes that will stalk the areas outside of the lanes to get kills, you've guaranteed yourself a kill, because once you kill one of the Meepos, you kill all of the Meepos. Lastly, for this guide, we have Medusa. Medusa's, I believe, the most recent addition to the agility carries, if I'm remembering correctly. Medusa likes heroes that allow her to get everybody close together for her multi-shot. So, Enigma and Trait Protector. She also likes mana because she mitigates damage based on how much mana she has. So Crystal Maiden is a good way to get a very steady source of mana during the team fight. Unfortunately, because a lot of her tankiness is based on her ability to have mana, heroes that burn mana or drain intelligence, like the bottom 3 examples, Nyx, Outworld Destroyer, and Anti-Mage, counter her very quickly and quickly deal away with her ability to be a tanky, quote-unquote, agility carry. Thanks for watching this episode, guys. As I had said earlier, I plan to make these charts available on some image sharing websites, message boards, things like that, to try and get the word out about my channel, and to have a quickly referenceable chart available to everybody that plays Dota. Keep an eye out for them. They'll be coming to message boards soon, and thanks for watching.